One of the things I love to do on my channel is take a look at the lore and history that goes into inspiring some of our favorite Call of Duty Zombies maps. Treyarch loved to do this throughout most of their games, and what it did was give us a better understanding of what was going on in the map, as well as why certain things were in the map. It grounded things in reality or history, and then in addition to that, gave us places to speculate on where Treyarch might be going, or why they included certain things, and what that could be telling us about future maps. It was fun, it gave us a better understanding of the story, and it also gave the maps more depth. This is why I love exploring it on my channel. World War II Zombies is no exception though. You might not realize it, but there's a lot of German lore and German myth that is actually going into shaping this World War II zombie story and gives us a pretty good idea of where we might be going for future maps. In order to get a good understanding of this, let's take a look at some of the intel that we've gotten in the Final Reich.
The Führer had asked for something exceptional from my staff. A soldier who does not rest, a soldier who does not fear, and a soldier who does not shy away from the shadow of death. I have found that soldier. Or perhaps it is better to say that I have birthed him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I had begun to lose hope in our ability to find artifacts of significance. But then, divine providence, the discovery of a lifetime. The hill to the legendary sword of the Holy Roman Emperor, Frederick Barbarossa, the embodiment of German nobility, German power. The Ahnenerbe was sent to reclaim the sword piece for Hitler's personal collection. And they could not move it. Not with chains, not with tractors, nothing. When the mountain will not come to... I brought everything to the mountain. My tools, my stuff. The foremost weapons expert in the Wehrmacht. Gruppenführer Heinz Richter. Little did we know that we were about to uncover something that would change our understanding of the world.
This first video file features Dr. Straub talking about the discovery of a lifetime. It was the hilt of the sword of Frederick Barbarossa's. He is one of the great conquerors of German history, one of the greatest Holy Roman empires, and his sword would, in a sense, be a symbol of Germany's greatness, of Germany's ability to conquer the world, and that's going to be important in a minute. He, though, notes that this sword has great power, and they can't remove it from the ground because it has so much power and energy surrounding it. Now, Dr. Richter wants to use it as a weapon, and Dr. Straub is going to use this energy surrounding the sword to create his Geistkraft machines, which are some of the machines that we find within the map, such as, say, the perk machines. They see this power that is inherently a part of the sword, but there's more to it that Klaus ends up discovering, and we learn a bit about within 2 of his audio files.
You see, Straub's focus was so all-encompassing that he missed some critical information. Information that was literally all around him. The chapel was more than just a resting place for this piece of the Emperor's legendary sword. It was like Father always told us, Marie. Art tells a story, and in the carving and the statues surrounding the hilt, I uncovered a tale I had never expected. There is more to this than buried treasure. I have uncovered clues to why the sword was taken apart, why it was hidden, and why it was made so inaccessible. There are forces at work here that have existed outside of history, hidden forces, a secret, darker than even Herr Himmler dares imagine.
Klaus is incredibly vague in these statements. He doesn't talk about the forces, he doesn't talk about the groups that are hidden from history. He says that Dr. Straub has basically overlooked all this because he's been so hyper-focused on things such as the Geistkraft. And there's more to it, and there's a reason this sword was taken apart. So this begs the question, why was the sword taken apart? Who would hide all of the pieces and go to great lengths to keep the sword hidden? In order to answer this question, what we might want to do is actually look into some of the lore and mystery surrounding Frederick Barbarossa. Because Frederick Barbarossa is such a focal point to the zombie storyline, it would only be helpful that we first get a better understanding of who he was in our real world, so then we can understand the legends and myths around him and how they're incorporated into the zombie storyline. Frederick Barbarossa was the emperor to the Holy Roman Empire. He ruled from 1155 to 1190 and was one of the most famous emperors to the Holy Roman Empire. He was beloved by his people, he was considered a very charismatic and powerful leader, and he tried to restore the Greater German Reich. He wanted to create a single unified Germany under one banner. At the time, Germany was a nation that wasn't really united as one country. There were several kingdoms under several princes, and he wanted to unite them all under a single banner. And he wanted to conquer as much land as he could, restoring his empire to the size that it once was under Charlemagne. He went on to rule the majority of what is now Germany, as well as part of what is now Italy and portions of Eastern Europe in areas such as what would now be considered Poland. He also went on multiple crusades in an effort to retake the Holy Land, and unfortunately he drowned during the Third Crusade. Legends have it, though, that Barbarossa did not actually die on that Third Crusade and is sleeping in the Kyffhaeuser Mountains. This legend dates back to the 17th century, however, it was first popularized in 1816 by the Brothers Grimm when they had published their book Deutsche Sagen. Now, Deutsche Sagen is actually a book that features several different legends throughout German-speaking countries, and they went around the country and basically collected as many as they could and published them into a book, and this was one of the legends that was published in their book. It goes like this. There are many legends surrounding the dealing with this emperor. They say that he is not dead, but that he shall live until the day of judgment, and also that no legitimate emperor shall rise up after him. Until that time, he will remain hidden in the Kyffhaeuser Mountain. When he appears, he will hang his shield on a dead tree, and leaves will sprout from the tree, and then better times will be had. From time to time, he speaks to those who find their way into the mountain, and from time to time, he makes appearances outside the mountain. Generally, he sits there on a bench at a round stone table, asleep with his hand in his head. He constantly nods his head and blinks his eyes. His beard has grown very long. According to some, it has grown through the stone table. According to others, it has grown around the table. They say that it must go around the circumference 3 times before he awakens. At present time, it has grown around the table twice. In the year 1669, a peasant from the village of Remlingen, who was hauling grain to Nordhausen, was taken to the mountain by a little dwarf. He was told to empty his grain and allowed to fill his sack with gold in its place. He saw the emperor sitting there, entirely motionless. In addition, a dwarf led a shepherd to the mountain who had once played a tune on his flute that had pleased the emperor. The emperor stood up and asked, "Are the ravens still flying around the mountain?" When the shepherd answered yes, Kaiser responded, "Then I must sleep for another 100 years. If you'd like, I'll put a link to the original text in both English and German in the description, but this is fascinating and there's a lot of direct references that we actually see in-game. Most notable would be the ravens. So supposedly, when the ravens stop flying around the mountain, then it will be time for Frederick Barbarossa to come again and bring forth a new Reich for the German people and bring better times. You'll see in-game there are ravens constantly flying around the map, and this is a reference to this original legend, and is probably a symbol that it's not time to awaken Barbarossa. In addition to that, one of the ways that we actually are able to lift his hilt from the ground is by playing some notes that please the system. You have to go to the voice of God and play the right tone, and then we are able to remove the hilt from the ground, much like the shepherd who played a tone on his flute that pleased the emperor, and then he stood up again. These are direct references to that legend that we actually see in-game. Now, how does this affect the greater zombie storyline and where we're going? Well, we have one part of the sword of Frederick Barbarossa, and Klaus has mentioned that there are multiple parts that were hidden. So we can only assume that the parts were separated because we don't want them together, and if they're together, then something terrible could happen. So we can then guess that we'll probably be going and finding other parts of the sword of Frederick Barbarossa. And when Klaus talks about something horrible that could happen when we get all the sword pieces together, maybe he's referring to actually waking up Barbarossa from his slumber. Now, the legend says that he is not dead until the Day of Judgment. Now, the Day of Judgment could be another way of saying the apocalypse, or the final day. And sure, times will be had that are better times according to the legend, but the Day of Judgment sounds incredibly ominous, and maybe waking up Barbarossa from his sleep with his sword is not what we actually want to happen, and could have terrible, horrible effects on the world that our characters are living in. Either way, all of this is stemming back to the sword of Frederick Barbarossa that we see in-game, and it's very clear that this legend is directly referenced in-game, and if this is where they're drawing their inspiration from, then it is a useful tool for 1, understanding what is happening in the map, and 2, seeing where we will go in future maps. This legend, the legend of the Kyffhaeuser Mountains and the Sleeping King, is the real-life World War II zombies, and where Sledgehammer came up with their concept for this story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting. There's so much more to talk about with World War II zombies, and I have some other great videos coming up. Have a wonderful day, and bye.